Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 5 of the Trauma and Friends We Made Along the Way podcast. I apologize that we've had a little delay in recording. Unfortunately, one of our guests who wanted to be on this episode, she was unavailable and it was really hard to kind of get it scheduled. So we needed to find someone who could speak on this issue as equally as her. So we are joined by that person today who we'll introduce in a minute. But first, Jess and I want to thank everyone who's been listening and sharing, sending emails, commenting. I've not done a recent view count because it is so many, especially when you include things like our TikToks and the reels on Instagram. It has actually been pretty intense. We've gotten quite a few emails. We actually had an expert in cults reach out on email. I have not vetted this person. I do not know how legit they are, so I don't know if we'll be using them, but that's kind of the level of interest we're getting. This episode will be the last of our season 1. Do not worry, we have 3 seasons planned as of right now, so don't freak out that this is the last episode. This is just of season 1. We thank everybody for allowing us to kind of find our groove with recording and doing this, so next season will be a little bit smoother. But I'm joined today, of course, by my co-host Jess, who's going to introduce our guests in a little bit. But we also wanted to say we hope you all had a good holiday season and that now you are in the rest period from the craziness.
Yeah, and thank you again, everybody, for listening. And I apologize. My brain's not always all the time here, but we are here present, and we are here and ready and willing to talk to everybody. And as Persephone said, we have more than enough information. You don't do 10 years of this stuff without a couple stories, obviously. So with that all being said, we have Kara today and we have Katie, and some of you may recognize Katie. She is back again for another episode of ours, and we're so glad to have you both here and ready, willing, and able to share your stories about this lovely mob mentality that we had going on. I know it wasn't exactly the best time, but it happened for a long time. So let's get into this.
So whoever wants to start, just kind of give us a little intro on your time in the group. I know, Katie, you've already kind of done that before. You're welcome to give a refresher if you'd like, but just kind of give us that background and then we can get into the nitty gritty of it.
So, hi, I'm Kara. Um, I was in the group the shortest time of everyone on this episode. Um, I joined, I remember what year it was. I remember the event that I joined on. It was the socks. Like I was added during the cold medicine episode
Mm-hmm.
that happened. Um, and I was added in the middle of the house cup that was going on, and I was completely lost. No idea what was going on. My intro to the group was actually a former student of mine reached out to me because I am a teacher, and asked me if I was a competitive person. And I said, well, yeah, why? And they go, well, I have this really cool group that's like really nerdy. And like we do this house cut competition and we do still those like nerdy themed things. And I think you have a bunch of fun. And so it's like, okay, sure, you can I have nerdy. Like I didn't know what to do. And so nothing happened for a very long time until, like I said, I got added when some um, merch got dropped at Target, apparently, and it was sock advent calendars that everyone was looking for. Um, so yeah, I kind of stayed on the fringes. I didn't get really heavily involved in the main group as far as like a lot of stuff because I wasn't allowed. And I'm sure you'll have some questions and stuff where I can elaborate on that later because it's largely, I was on the receiving end of the mob mentality. I didn't really join the mob mentality. I was attacked multiple times in the group, both in the main group and in several of the offshoot smaller groups that we had as well. Um, I, yeah, it was a trip. It was a trip. When I told my husband that I was going to be recording a podcast over the group today, he was like, "Oh, you mean that group?" And he started lighting up. And apparently, he's still very angry about how I was treated by certain people in the group, and one of the leaders in particular, E. was very, very, very horrible to me in particular. Um, yeah, so that's my just kind of nutshell experience with the group, was being on the receiving end of mob mentality as opposed to joining in it. I was kind of a sacrificial lamb, and I don't think my student intended me to be one. So, my any stretch of the imagination. I still love that kiddo, still talk to that kiddo regularly. I adore them so very much. They're pretty messed up with all this stuff too. So yeah, that's me. That's me.
And then I'm Katie. So I have been on here before, but I joined the group. I found it with Flitwicks. The jewelry subscription was how I found it originally. Then the Fandom of the Month official buy sell trade group was how I got added in when the group first started. So I think it was actually the second group. I think there was one before the main group that fell apart, and then there was the big main one. And that's how I got added in, was through that. And it was just because hey, it was a bunch of fun, nerdy people that were going to have stuff in common. So great to join. And I mean, the first House Cup was great. Everyone was, and then it kind of seemed to devolve with the second one. And that seemed to be when the mob mentality really came out, was with the second House Cup. And then all of the side groups and everything that happened afterwards, until it inevitably, the bubble bursts.
It imploded on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too much pressure. It's got to go somewhere, and it just.
Yeah, it imploded.
yeah, I definitely say that unlike a lot of cults, we weren't exactly the most organized group. It was a little bit more like Mean Girls on crack, but I
Yep.
digress.
Yeah, yeah,
But look who was trying to lead us. They were not the most organized people. It's not like that charismatic leader who knows how to set stuff up. These were people with a lot of neurodivergence and mental illness all at the same time. So,
Yeah,
hmm
and I goes that took the reins a lot more than perhaps it should have if we were going to be a
yeah.
successful cult. However, thankfully we imploded.
yeah. But we didn't wear pink on Wednesdays. There was a pink dress instead.
Yep, but
Hmm.
Hmm
God knows enough merch made us pretty recognizable around
Yep.
the world,
Yep.
Yeah,
especially when we started putting bumper stickers on our cars.
yeah. Then no, that never, never did that one.
No.
Oh dear.
So, one of the first things that we kind of wanted to touch on is, why do you feel that we were so ready to go on the defensive for them when things were, for example, like when they were getting the bad reviews for getting product? Why do you think that it tended to happen that way, where we would not only turn on each other, but on people who were not in the group who came at us? Like, why we were so willing to do that.
I feel like it was easy as a group to be like, oh, those people are full of shit. Like, we all get our stuff, because I think in the beginning, they made sure that if you were in the group, you got your stuff, because we were the easiest audience to grab and be like, well, look at the, 100 to later 1,000 or so people in this group. They've all got all of their stuff. So why are you saying you haven't? And then I think it got bad because there was the one person that made like the Instagram page against the three of them. And it was mostly, I think, against E, because it was, I think, a Fandom of the Month issue. And it was this one person. And then they started taking photos of people from the group with like, because it was, we became like the TFP army. And if you did that hashtag, this person was taking photos of like people's children and posting it on their Instagram. And I think that was a lot of being like, who are you to take pictures of, I don't have kids, but to take pictures of my kids and post it on your page because you're mad at someone else and you're using my kid for it. So I think I was very much in the group of, who are you to use someone else's children? If you're mad at someone for not getting something, cool, but don't be attacking to us or posting pictures of people. Because so I think I went back and forth with that person for a while because they kept posting screenshots of my Instagram, which was mostly book, but never tagged me. And I was the person to be like, if you're going to say something about me, tag me. Because if you're going to use me as an example of, well, this person is saying stuff and this person is posting all of their fandom of the month merch, because I posted all of my subscription boxes. My Instagram is all subscription boxes and books. So I would constantly post them. So they would use me as an example of, well, they're getting their stuff because they're in that group. I'm like, okay, but at me. If you're going to say something negative about me, tag me in it, because at least I can stand up for myself to say, this is stuff I paid for. I'm not being gifted things. I'm, yes, a member of a Facebook group, but I'm paying for my items. I'm not promoting it because they're paying me to promote it. So I think it was a lot of, well, we're all getting our stuff. This one person is now attacking all of us, and that one person is, well, screw that one person that's being negative when this group is great. Because it was also, I think, before the second House Cup, when there was, I think that's when all of the inner fighting started, was the second House Cup. Because that's all I remember is because I was a Ravenclaw, we won the first House Cup, and then it seemed like the second one, there was a lot of negativity towards us, and I'm so bad with names, and I am blanking on who is the head of Ravenclaw, but she's wonderful, and people were being negative to her, and I was like, that's just because we did well one year, now we're the bad people, and you're going to attack her for doing nothing but running a group for the Ravenclaws. So I feel like the second House Cup is when the inner fighting started, that it really went bad that second cup. The first one was fun. We had up your butt gate and all of that fun stuff.
Mhm.
It was the second one where it got way more competitive and way more everyone is after everyone else.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
and there
that
was
was
cheating too. Yeah.
yeah, there was the cheating, and
Yeah.
then there was like a second group that I think and the second group the side conversation could have been a lie that people made up, but there are these people that are saying all of this bad stuff. They're talking negatively about everyone. They're sending things in the mail. They're cheating. They're trying to do stuff. They're giving less points to certain groups because they don't like them. And that could have been bullshit, because who knows? We never saw the chat. We never saw anything. It was just people posting, these ones are doing bad things. And there was never any evidence, but it was just okay, well, then they should be out of the group. This isn't fair. And I think a lot of them were kicked out of the group. And I think I unfriended one person because I got nervous of, well, because if they see people on your friends list, they were like, oh, well, you're one of them. So I did unfriend someone, because I was like, I don't want to be the person they look at. Why are you still friends with that person that was removed from the group because of the cheating and all the bad stuff happening? So it's like they really did check people's friends lists. And I was like, yeah, no, I will just unfriend that person, even though I liked her. We went to Six Flags together. We were friendly, and she lived in my state. And I was still like, yeah, no, I don't want to be who they turn on next because she's still on my Facebook friends list.
Yeah, there was that
And
fear of getting added to their burn
yeah,
book. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I will just unfriend you. And
Yeah.
I feel shitty about it. She never did anything to me. I don't know if she actually did anything in the group, but I unfriended a really nice person who I had a lot of fun at Six Flags with, because they were checking her friends list to see who in the group was still friends with her.
As someone who joined doing apparently the second House Cup, I'm going to assume that is where I fell in the timeline. I remember watching like the paranoia in the group as someone who got thrown into this chaos, and I was just kind of watching it, and I was like, I don't get this. Like the competition, fine, whatever. But the turning against each other that spilled into the main group from the side stuff going on, I just thought was really, really weird. And funnily enough, this is not the first cult I've been involved in my life. So, like, yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna keep your number. We're gonna keep your number.
right? Like this is honestly not the first cult I've been involved in my life. First one I didn't have a choice in because my mother and it was a thing. But no, so I saw a lot of the signs of it, and I started posting in the group of like, hey, like what is this issue? So I started calling stuff out of, hey, this is weird, and I even used the word culty before it got thrown around the hashtag not a cult.
Yep. Oh, I remember
I
that.
I think I'm one of the ones who first used the term culty in the group.
Yeah.
Like now that I think back and like I look at this, I was like, hey, this is coming across as really culty. Like, what is this? This is weird.
Hey
Like,
guys, it's a
y'all
red
need to like,
flag.
yeah, red flag be flagging. And so it's like you're not Ferdinand. Mm, you're not seeing the flags, babies. Um, but so I watched this again, having experience from having had to leave a cult and get my mother out of a cult before when I was a teenager. Like I said, I'm one of the first people that threw that hated word around, and I became a persona non grata in the group. Um, but like because like I am someone who I question authority. Yes, I'm a teacher who questions authority. Shocker. Um, teach my students to do so as well. Um, but I remember like with that second cup, like in because I was in the Slytherin house. We were like forming like based on the games that they knew were going to be played, like who does this and does this. Like we had like little side conversations, different games and things and whatever. And I remember the tonal shift that happened in my side Facebook Messenger conversations from these games. The minute I used the word culty in the group, I became hated in all of my side conversations. And I remember like I was supposed to play like 2 or 3 games or something. And I got told that I couldn't play. And they kicked me off of the teams, but they left me in the Slytherin common room. And I was like, well, why can't, like, we've already practiced this. Like, I really don't understand because I didn't. And I didn't realize how bad it was behind the veil, for lack of a better term. And also with the question of like, why were people so willing to do this? Um, again, I'm one of the people who called it out, but the leaders of the group, one of the M's, because there's two M's, right? One of the M's kind of like stayed out of it. The other M and E pitched us against each other. And like with the bad reviews of like, oh, I didn't get my product, blah, 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 blah. E in particular, I remember at one point posted, hey, this person said blah, blah, blah. This isn't true and y'all know this, with the implication that we needed to go and handle this. M2 was a lot more direct with it of, hey, y'all need to go say something, stick up with us. E was a lot better about not giving us explicit direction and being like allowing us to infer what she wanted, and she would imply what she wanted without directly coming out and saying it. M2 would explicitly say, go do blah, 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 blah. Go use hashtag FYP Army. Like, I remember her giving that direction of FYP Army. And I said again, this is a hashtag cult. And then the reply became, no, we're hashtag not a cult. And that is how that hashtag started. It was because of that. But yeah, like it was very interesting. Like I have to laugh at the ridiculousness of it. I just have to. I'm also one of the few people that's actually met one of them, I think. I don't think very many people actually met any of the three. I met one. I went to E's birthday party, and my husband met E. And so the moment we went up there and we had our interaction, and that's a completely different podcast, that's fine. Um, he told me, hey, babe, like this reminds me of the stories about, and he and I actually had the conversation about the cult that I left previously as a kid. And I was like, yeah, no, I know. He's like, well, why don't you leave the group? I was like, well, because I've got friends there that I'm going to try to get out and try to make sure that they're okay. All of that. And even I still got sucked in knowing the red flags and stuff. I still made purchases from E and her little side group because at one point E quit pretty much posting in the main group and started her own little side thing. Um, and so I ordered from her about like $600-700 for the product, whatever. Um, and at this point, I'm just like, it is what it is. Like, call it a $600 lesson. Like, obviously, you needed that $600 a lot more than I did. Like, go with God, boo. You got to live with yourself at the end of the day. Um, but I think the reason that a lot of us stayed, even when it got so horrible, is because, like you guys said, the bonds and the friends we made along the way. Like, I had so many people that I considered friends that got so sucked into it. And I just, like I said, I quit posting the group. I just kind of watched from the sidelines. And then I started having people message me and ask me, hey, do you have blah, blah, blah? And that's when people started collecting evidence of like the literal money laundering that was going on. Cause there's no other word for it. It was money laundering and it was fraud. Um, and so that's kind of when the tide turned, was when other people kind of figured out who was safe, for lack of a better term. But it was very much like living in 1984 with Big Brother is always watching, with the going through the friends lists and doing all of that. Yeah. But yeah, in summation, I think the reason why people were so willing to turn was because it became an us versus them. And I've said this for a very long time. People need two types of people in their life. They need someone to feel better than, and someone to aspire to be. And if you can give people a common enemy, if you can give them someone to hate, hatred is a lot more sustainable than just fear. Fear alone is exhausting to maintain and control, but if you can give them directed hatred towards something, it is a lot easier to do that and control and manipulate people.
Yeah.
I actually asked my husband last night how he thought that I could end up in this situation, and he said that he understands it because he was similar when he was younger. He's like, I think a lot of people are, and he goes, it's this desire to fit in a group, and it's this hope that the people that you're finding are your community. And then a lot of individuals, especially those like a lot of us who are in the group, have that loyalty of, well, they're my friends. They're not going to screw me over. Rather than seeing it for what it truly is. And I think that it became really hard for a lot of us, I think in the long run, to walk away from something, especially when you have created a community with the people around you, regardless of how toxic that can be. And I'm sure, Kara, you know that like more than anybody, apparently. Like, especially, I can't imagine how hard that was walking out the first time to walk into door number 2 and go, I don't want to stay, but I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet horribly punished for it, effectively. And I
I
think
had
that
people threaten to call my job, and like I had people threaten to make false reports against me as a teacher to get my license revoked.
The fuck.
I can't.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
like I could not make this up if I tried, and that's something I actually haven't told anybody happened. But one of the anonymous people threatened to literally try to come for my professional job, and I'm like, I haven't done anything. He's like, you know what? You do you, boo. You send those screenshots to my superintendent because it's a Facebook group. I'm. What are you talking? It was the psychosis was so real with
I can
some of these
imagine the
people.
anxiety that put you through, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the mental health toll that I think this took on a lot
Hmm.
of people is astronomical, and it's disgusting, and it's disappointing,
Hmm.
and it's I
Well, I think
think
a
that,
lot of us in the group were neurodivergent in some capacity, and so that
yeah,
sadly makes us easier prey.
yeah,
Be it
Yeah.
anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, OCPD, like I have, whatever. Like we're much easier targets because we already are susceptible to our own Like, we can't trust our inner voices because our inner voices say a lot of really dark things sometimes. And so, like, I think that that played a huge part of it, was that, like I said, people with mental health concerns are more susceptible to falling into this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because we have people who came in at such different stages, who experienced it in such different ways, because as someone who was in it from not the very beginning but close to the beginning, I think that's what made it a little harder for me to see, because it's like, what is it, the frog doesn't notice it's being boiled,
Yep.
because you're in that for so long, and we had the experience of it being so positive for so long, where we didn't really have many issues. Not to say issues didn't happen, but they weren't to the same extent. And then suddenly, after that second House Cup, where things really, really, really escalated, and you have a bunch of these new people who joined because of the cold medicine event and everything else, they bring a new perspective. And that also could have been why it started to fall apart, because you have these new perspectives coming in saying, okay, this is just freaking weird. Why is this happening? Like Kara and the
Mm-hmm.
rest of us who are sitting there like, I don't know why this is weird, because it was such a
Yep.
slow build type thing, where there were, many moments where we were all very bonded together. And it wasn't really until they started getting so much money from us that I think they realized the level of target. Because even in the early stages, yeah, a lot of people had the subscription boxes, but it wasn't the same as they started doing the makeup and they started doing these extra things and all this stuff.
The
And then
custom orders.
right, like they got these things where they realized, oh, here is the money stream. And that's why we got our orders first, because they knew we were their paycheck, their steady salaried paycheck. Everything else was like overtime or bonuses, essentially. And that's why at first they catered to us, but then they got sloppy, which eventually does happen to people, especially, again, they were not the most organized people to begin with. But I think that's part of the problem, is you have these layers of timing where people entered, layers of when they got the realization of, hey, we can get this from them. Because I do think it was a conscious choice. I've been asked by people, like, do you think they did it on purpose? And I was like, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
I do think they did it on. You don't do this level of fraud and the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
they were asking. I've actually even debated posting some of the screenshots I have of the fraud, like in some different posts, like to give us some more content, because I've been asked that a lot. And I'm like, you don't sit there and come up with this message that you copy and paste to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people to get money out of them without a level of, oh yeah, I'm doing this on purpose. Like, this was I think in the beginning, maybe not, but like it became one at some point. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, why are you starting these side groups to do your waffles or your custom cup orders or all these giveaways and different things? You don't, that takes too much time. It's like the people who say, I didn't mean to block you or delete something, when it takes like 18 steps on all these socials to do that. Like, it takes 20 steps to post something. You don't just post something accidentally, like it's that level. So I think in some way it's hard for people to grasp, because there were so many stages. Because again, this was like 10 years. This was not 1 year or less. This was a decade of many of our lives. And even if you weren't there that whole decade, even 2 years, 3 years is still a long time to be in that environment. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do
Well,
think it was deliberate, particularly since apparently there was a first group that fell apart,
yep.
and then they deliberately made a second group. So
Yep.
even if the first group started sliding downhill and like didn't mean to or whatever, I wasn't part of it. I can't speak on that. I have zero idea. But I do think that it was always the in pursuit with group two. I do believe that. And as much as I do know that M1 was the least involved in the issues, you cannot tell me that she did not know what her sisters were doing, especially
Sure.
since they were all business partners together. And so unlike a lot of people in the group who are like, oh, well, she didn't know. Oh, poor M1. Oh, poor M1. I'm like, no, she is just as culpable, in my opinion. And people are free to disagree with that, and that is perfectly fine. But it's it's like my quote says, the silence sides with the oppressor.
Yeah.
So even if she did not have an active hand in these things, she did not stop her sisters from doing this. That makes her just as culpable, in my opinion. And I
I think
do believe it was deliberately done. And I do
I think
believe it was maliciously done.
the other two really pushed that. She was that, you know, every time something went bad, and because I was in both side groups, um, every time something went bad, or there, it was always don't tell her.
Mm-hmm.
She will be so upset when they were selling, you know, makeup products, which, you know, at the time you don't realize is, you know, super illegal to be selling products from a company just because you're, you know, a part of it and taking the money and having it be yourself. That it was always, well, don't tell her. She doesn't need to know. You know, it's just between, you know, us and the group. And then she got added to the other M's group, and that's when everything stopped. Because, well, now it was kind of like she was the person that the other sisters were afraid of. And not in a bad, like, I think it was more if she knew what was going on, it would put a stop to the other groups. And that was the way it was, because it seemed like M, who had the chamber, because she was the first side group, was very much a, well, this is my little group and these are my little people that'll do everything. And then when it got found out and other M joined, it was shut it down. You guys, you're doing bad stuff. But we never got our money back. So her
Mm-mm.
coming in just put a stop to the new waffles. And I thought, but it wasn't, well, she came in and now everything's going to be fixed and we're going to get our money back. But she's the only one that's still in the actual group. It's still there. She's the only one that's still
Mm-hmm.
there because she might have been culpable in not putting us out. She's the only one that didn't actively make a group to scam people. Or if she did, none of us got invited to it.
Just because she held the
She
leash
was
on
the
the other
only,
two doesn't mean she shouldn't have helped bandage it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think that at the end of the day, I do agree that the other two were nervous around her, but I think it was because she was almost the most level-headed of the three. But that almost is scarier because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if she has the power to hold that control, then she also has the power to fix it. But she neglected to do that. And I agree, Kara. I think that makes her one of the most, if not the most, culpable in that regard. Because if you have that type of influence over the people who are doing the damage, why aren't you helping with it?
We lost Jess for a minute. Her internet connection went down. I kind of, well, we'll go back to what she was saying, but it reminded me of how a bunch of us, including myself, actually reached out to their mother, Jay, to tell her what was going on. And some of the replies are so messed up because one of the things she said was, I can't control what they do. Like, she acknowledged
Mm-hmm.
it, but she's like, oh, they're making their own decisions. I'm like, listen, I get they're adults, but I know if I was doing something really stupid, either one of my aunts or my dad is going to come and be like, what in the hell are you doing? If I was doing something
Yeah.
illegal and my family is being told about, my brother is a prosecutor, or he was prosecutor. If somebody went and told him that, do you know how fast that man would have called me and been like, stop. Number one, stop. And we're going to discuss this and we're going to have a really in-depth conversation, because I think that's part of the accountability is our family and friends should hold us accountable when we're doing something messed up. Like, I've had to call out friends for multiple things before, small things and big things, because that's part of having a relationship where you communicate, is being honest with each other when someone is doing something that is dangerous, shady, illegal. any of those things, because you should care about them. You should care about what happens to them and their life. And if you're not calling them out, Jess has returned to us. We were just kind of talking about how their mother was informed of all this as well and did nothing and acknowledged that these things were going on, but basically told us all that she could do nothing about it.
Tough cookies, it is what it
So
is. Yeah.
yeah. But I want to go back to what you were saying before we lost you there for a second.
Oh, just that at the end of the day, it was deep fraud on an exponential level. Again, like my husband being in fraud investigation, he is of the firm belief that not only was it malicious and intentful, but whilst it didn't start that way, it definitely amped up that way. And one of my best friends has this saying where she goes, doesn't matter if it comes from a stupid place or a malicious place, it's still a really shitty thing to do. And it doesn't matter which of those it is, it's pretty nasty. And I think that it may have started from a stupid place, but it sure as shit ended maliciously. And I think that malicious intent continued, I want to say, for at least the last 3 years of the group. And I think that once it was realized the extent of not only how far we were all willing to go, I think that how much we were willing to support really solidified our army behind them, for lack of a better term. And I think that I think there are two types of people, and I think that once one of those types realizes that the power that they have, I think they don't use it for good. And I definitely think that we ended up in one of those situations. And I also really quickly wanted to go back, for those curious what the cold med event is because the group was private, we always had requests for people to join. And the one M who wasn't really involved with the scamming end of things took too much cold medication, I believe, and accepted a whack load of people. And I'm sure every one of those people who got dropped in looked around and went, what is going on here?
Yep.
It was something like 1,000 to 1,500
Yeah.
people or something absurd like
Yeah.
that. We're not
I
talking
think
like 100 people.
No.
I think
It
she
was,
hit
like
select all or accept
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. That's
Like,
exactly what it was.
it was in the almost 2,000 range. Like it was
high.
that's a lot of people just to get dumped into a private group in the middle of an event.
Well, and I'm not
And I
being
think
funny,
that's
and maybe I'm a little bit on the skeptical side of things, but to go back to what you said about it takes several steps to do some of this stuff, I start to wonder if that was on purpose. In a way to build up numbers for what was to come. Whether, again, this is planned out on a big old corkboard with a whole bunch of string, or it was just ideas that started happening and they were like, well, let's see what happens when we press this button.
just throw a bunch of more people in there. If they're going to see it and be like, this is crazy, they'll leave.
Yeah.
But at least they're in and they can leave if they want to. So it's kind of just like
a 50% jump in our cash pot. Like, and that is, so I'm not convinced that it wasn't a meaningful situation.
Well, and my thing as well with M1, because it was mentioned by Katie, I think, in this episode, that M1 was like the one who, like, they're like, oh, don't tell M1, don't tell M1, don't tell M1. And when M1 got added to M2's side group, it stopped. M2 was in charge of that group and added M1.
Yeah.
She was not. She didn't own the group.
Oh. She didn't?
She
You said it was her group to do what she wanted.
It was her group. She didn't create it. She had someone else create it. Another one of the girls that's in the group.
Okay.
And it's also why it didn't get deleted when all of the bad shit started happening. She started dirty deleting groups.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, look at this. You can't dirty delete this one, because I posted in it when I decided to go scorched earth when I got really mad at them. I had posted in that one and another group and was like, well, look at this. You can't dirty delete this group because you
Mm-hmm.
didn't create it. Because
I remember that
yeah,
post.
yeah. That was like,
Mhm.
try dirty deleting this one. You don't own it.
Yep, I
That
remember that one.
what they would do is they went through and any
Mm-hmm.
side group that they had created, they started deleting to try and like
Yeah.
get rid of the evidence. She didn't create the chamber because I think at first it was just like a funny like group of like, oh well, let's just post in here. It's a nice little side group. So it was her group. She did not create the
Mhm.
page originally.
Okay.
So someone else owned it, so she could not delete it.
That
So
Okay,
actually
it
I
was
makes me
apologize for my
circle.
yeah.
misunderstanding then.
Oh no,
Yeah.
but it was
That
very
actually
much
makes
a
me
didn't
curious
delete it
about the people
like
who create
easy.
groups. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's why she couldn't delete that group like E
Yeah.
deleted hers because it was her group without being technically one she made.
Her group. Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually reminds me of, I don't know if I mentioned it in a previous episode. My memory is not that great with that, but one of the former admins of the main group and who did admin stuff for many of the other groups reached out to me to tell me her side of the story. She sent me an email. And without getting into it, I'm not going to name names because that's not the point of this. Is she was apparently very aware of things that were going on and claims she said stuff about it, but never said that to the group. And this is also an individual that many people have come to me saying how they were bullied by that person, who had bad experiences with her. And, you know, you have this person now who created that group. So it's like, how many other people knew these things were happening and didn't take an active role in stopping it, and instead helped perpetuate it by either creating groups, bullying other people, um saying things? Because I've seen some of the screenshots of stuff that she said and did. You know, I wasn't part of that, but like in terms of seeing it, it's kind of hard to ignore that. I'm like, so you were an admin of this group and clearly participated in something, and then you're telling me that you knew about these things. That's a problem. You know, people are creating groups for them, people are doing this for them. And I know a lot of us were scammed, you know, like the people who unfortunately their PayPals were used and stuff like that. That's a
Mm-hmm.
whole other messed up thing.
Yeah.
But there has to be some level of realization of like, you're watching these people being hurt and kicked out of the group and you're not doing anything about it. And that's a super big issue for me because it's like, I wasn't perfect in it, but I also never went and attacked people directly. I didn't do, you know, I'm a lurker in a lot of groups anyway. So like, yeah, I'd participate in some stuff, but like, I didn't know a lot of things were happening in that second house cup. And I was in the Gryffindor house where a lot of the really bad shit went down that year with the cheating and everything. I didn't even know it had happened until after, because that's how like kind of removed I was from it. But watching that and then seeing all these people get bullied, because Kara, I saw you get bullied. You know, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know you that well yet. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I think we became more friends towards the end and after anyway.
I think it was
Uh,
after when we actually became friends.
yeah, like really started
Mm-hmm.
talking and stuff. So, you know, it's one of those like, I saw a lot of these things, the nasty stuff, and then I was on the receiving end of it when I was accused of trying to take money from people when I was at Universal with my family, that I've mentioned in that previous episode, where I was going through the divorce. And when I'd asked Eve if I could post in the group and, you know, offered services, something to raise money
Mm-hmm.
for the retainer, and instead people donated, even though that's not what I asked for. And it was right before the trip to go be with my family, who I hadn't seen because COVID, and we'd had postponed this trip. A lot of it had already been paid for and are like the non-refundable deposits that I can't get back to use for the divorce. And my
Yeah.
brother had paid for my Universal ticket. So I didn't actually pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I posted that I was there, I got a ton of nasty messages from a bunch of people saying I was stealing money, just like the triplets had done, and they were saying some of the most horrible things to me while I'm with my family. And this is the first time I got to ever meet my dad in real life because of my particular birth situation. And so I'm like meeting a bunch of family members for the first time that I'd been planned on and got delayed because of COVID. And you're making this about you when I did not ask for this money. People decided to donate. I asked to offer a service to pay for it. And B, you don't know the circumstances of how this is going down. Right? Like that is what was so frustrating, is like the mom mentality had gotten that bad where we didn't even trust each other, and then people felt entitled with how you spent your money. Which I've always had an issue with that. Like if somebody asks me for money and then I see that they did something expensive, listen, as long as you pay me back, if we have an agreement for being paid back, I don't care. That's between you and your own conscience. If I offer the money and don't expect it being paid back and you do something with that, again, I don't care. It's none of my business because I have separated myself from the situation at that point. But they seem to actively care that I was standing in Universal Studios with my family for a day, which, to be real, those tickets at the time were like $79 when a retainer for a divorce for mine was $2,500. That's a little bit of a
Yep.
difference here. We're talking about, everybody, like that, whoop-de-doo,
Little.
$79.
And it's
you
like, how
know
dare you do something nice when you're going through something awful? Who looked at something as like, you're having a fun day when going through something terrible? How dare you go be miserable in a corner? Like, it's ridiculous the things people did. And it's like, I think, and like, I'm so bad with names, 100%, that I think I realized when E posted something negative in her group of, this person asked for stuff. They're awful. They are going to get all of their stuff, but they're no longer in the group. And it's like, yeah, they were never. And Kara, I don't know if it was you. I don't know if it was someone else, because, as I said, the group
I
deleted it.
never got anything. I never got anything I ordered.
Because I
I
think
am out almost $700.
because I think someone questioned her, and she posted like,
Mhm.
this person is terrible. She questioned me. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm not going to question you, because if I question you, you are going to publicly post with my name saying that I'm also doing something terrible for questioning you. And I think it really was because I think after the second House Cup and then everyone got added with, cough syrup gate, that's when they launched the brand. And they
yeah
had all of us in there, and we were the first people to buy from the brand.
yeah
I bought that then got copyright infringement, and I got in trouble for them wand brushes that were Harry Potter wands. They went to us first because we were the captive audience of, we were already there. And when all of us got it, if anyone else, and when people started doing the knockoffs, they had us go like reporting all of the
yeah
knockoffs and reporting all
Yeah.
the people, because, well, we got ours, yours are fake, you're fake. And I think that's why we got all of our stuff in the beginning. And then when it started falling apart, the mob turned on them, as it should have, because they were cult leaders. But they had the mob, they fucked it up and used us wrong and screwed us. And now it's the shift, and it's on you, and you are now the bad ones. And now they act like none of us existed and none of this ever happened.
Yep.
Like, this didn't happen. All the groups are gone. You can't prove any of this happened. And now they're just living their
E and
lives like,
M2, E and M2 both have TikTok accounts.
oh, I blocked
They
them the
have
second they came up.
they have come across my FYP. They both have TikTok accounts. And me,
I
I'm I'm a Slytherin through and through. I'm a petty bitch, y'all. I didn't block shit because the moment I see them promoting stuff, I report it as fraudulent.
That's smart. And I think people were doing that.
I'm a petty cunt. Yep. I am a petty cunt. I report it as fraudulent, and I fill in and I type in, they have this history, and I got time today. I got time today, sweetheart. anytime one of the, and I don't go and hunt them out. I don't do that. But anytime they come across my FYP, I report every single video was fraudulent. And I put the full history.
Because it's what they're frauds. And I think they've been kicked out of a lot of selling pages because
Yeah.
he goes in and tries to like sell things, and people will go in and they'll message the admins and be like, "This is the history," and she gets booted from the group, as she should, because who's going to trust you to send stuff when you've never sent anything in the past?
I've reported her eBay account with screenshots of how she frauded me.
And I have like a fear of not sending things.
See, like people are like I started collecting evidence. I think like 6 months after I got added to the group, I started screenshotting shit. Before anything started coming to light, I started screenshotting anything that seemed shady. I've got folders of crap. Folders of crap saved. It's somewhere. I don't remember where it is anymore. But it's like I like I said, 6 months in, I started screenshotting stuff because I knew things were going to fall apart.
Tara, I love you.
I knew they were, and I
girl.
wanted to protect my friends as much as I could.
It got too big. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have reported their eBay accounts, their TikTok accounts, every single TikTok video that comes across. Anytime I see them on some kind of like Facebook thing that comes across and I see their name, I have replied, "Hey, still scamming people," the comments that they leave on stuff.
And it's not
Well,
like
now
they
you
can
can
add a
just link the
PayPal.
podcast. Just link the podcast and be like, hey,
Have you
there's
seen
a
this?
whole podcast about how they scammed people for years. I mean, but because it's so ridiculous, they keep doing it. Because another one of, Kara, our other friend Ashley, had that recent experience where she was in a group and he popped up.
Yep.
He popped up selling stuff, and she was like, Ashley was texting me like screenshots of it. She's like, "Are you seeing this?" And I'm like, "Okay," like they pop up everywhere. They pop up everywhere with this kind of stuff. I actually blocked their TikToks from seeing the podcast TikTok, like they're direct. So unless someone
As
like
you should. As you should.
because I was like, we don't need that today because they did pop up as people you might know, and I was like, oh hell no, we're not doing that today, not today, Satan. So I was like going through
Blah, 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 blah.
block it's because I'm pretty petty, but with this I was like, no, we can't do that. If it was like my
No.
personal, I would 100% not care because I don't care. It's just so funny that even years later that the effects of this continue, seeing them continue to try to scam people, seeing them pop up in all these socials and all these groups, and
Yeah.
knowing that there was zero accountability for them, even though some, M2 lost her house because of the fraudulent stuff, marriages started falling apart, children were affected, but for some reason, that was not enough of a rock bottom for them to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So there is no bottom for them except maybe like pure complete homelessness with like nothing. But even then, I still think they would try to con people because that's what con men and women do is they just they don't know any other way of legitimately earning a living other than to hurt people because they always wanted to be famous. I have really debated. I know we are trying not to use their names, but there is that old American Idol clip, which is still my favorite thing to watch when I'm having a bad day because it is the most cringe thing.
Also have like a pilot of a show because
They
I
did.
remember seeing that. But it was
Yeah,
the three of them.
There's a pilot of a show, and then there's their episode of American Idol.
It was tried to do a pilot after they got kicked off of American Idol as like being identical. That they had like a because I remember watching
Yeah.
that on YouTube that they
Yeah.
did that.
Well, and it's so sad because they wanted to be famous, sure. A lot of people do. That in and of itself is not negative. But they could have totally been more famous with this makeup company if they had just run it as a proper business. They could be like how Her Universe is now.
They were in Ulta in
They
the
were in
beginning.
Ulta. Yeah, Hot Topic
Like
was
from
doing
the
deals.
start, they were in Ulta. Like, how do you screw that when you have one palette and one set of brushes and you are already in a big box store that everyone knows you and you are not going to like run that and do it right and do it well, you're going to screw that. You literally had it made. You were
Yeah.
in Ulta, people were ripping you off, which sucks, but I'm sorry, if people are making dupes of your shit, you're doing a good job because clearly
Yes.
you have stuff that people want. Fuck it up. Fuck it
And
up.
How do you fuck it
you
up? You have one
did.
shared brain cell.
Yeah.
It's just I just I don't understand it because the makeup was actually good as a makeup girly myself. You know, I grew up, my grandma was a cosmetologist. Like, I grew up doing like theater makeup and things. I loved the makeup. I wore the lipstick to my wedding because I loved it that much, and it
Oh
didn't
wow.
budge the whole wedding. You know, like, you're taking pictures, you're doing your first kiss, all that stuff, and it never left. Like, it didn't move. So I'm like, this is amazing. Their quality was excellent. The ideas were there. They were beautiful palettes. You know, everything was there to where it's like you had contracts with things like Care Bears and Roald Doll and Mean Girls. You had all these things. You were meeting with Hot Topic, and you were so obsessed with being greedy too fast that
You had
you could
Star
be in a
Wars.
yeah, you could be in a position where you are now, your business is being run by someone else, and you can go be on the beach somewhere, and then you wouldn't have to struggle to con people. Like, that is a level I do not understand, because they got a hold of a dream that many people have had, and they were so close, and yet they decided to scam themselves out of it. And I think that, to me, is the saddest part, is you could have been just as famous as so many of these other awesome nerdy brands, and you, for
It's
whatever reason, decided to scam a group of about roughly 3,000 people
Mhm.
because you didn't really want to work.
Having met E, um, I think there are potential addiction issues.
Oh,
Having met E, um, I'm not a clinical person. I'm not a doctor. Like, let me put that out there. I am not a trained medical professional with any of that type of thing, but I am the child of addicts and alcoholics. I am the family of addicts and alcoholics. And I do believe that there was some kind of addiction disorder there. Um, I believe it was alcohol, having met E. I never met M1, never met M2. But like I said, there was something there, at least with E. I also think that there were probably some other underlying issues just because of how much they would buy things. Like, they would post about crap that they bought. There was just weird stuff. Oh, look at this really cool thing that I bought, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, baby, that's a hoarder. Like, baby, that's, mm. I said, again, I'm not trying to make light of what they did. I'm not trying to make light of any type of mental disorder or psychosis that would cause any of the problems that I'm potentially putting out there as an impetus for why they would behave the way that they do, or did. I hope that they stop these behaviors at some point. Um, but like I said, there's an underlying cause that we don't know what it is because we are not them and we are not their family. I think that could also potentially explain the mother's, oh, well, I can't control them type of mentality because of maybe she's been putting up with these kinds of things for a while or what have you. It's not to excuse it. I'm still very angry about what happened more to my friends than me. I got out light with almost $700. I never got anything that I ordered. I never got a single blessed thing from anybody. But like I said, it is not an excuse, but it is a potential reason, if that makes sense.
yeah. Um,
well, I
so
mean,
So
uh,
like, personally, I hope that they get the help that they need. Um, to paraphrase a quote, I still want to see them eat, just not at my fucking table.
yeah. So to my knowledge, M2 did have some history with addiction. And sobriety was of question at points throughout the group, with the history that occurred. And I would agree wholeheartedly that there was definitely, I'll call it some shopping addiction. As
Oh
somebody
yeah.
who had a bit of a touch with some financial issues due to certain shopping addictions and certain other things that I got myself out of, but was very severe at the time when all of this was going on. In retrospect and through my own therapeutic and mental health journey, it definitely was to fill a void at the time and to put a band-aid on a bullet hole, to to say the least. Looking back, I can definitely see those similar patterns of trying to make yourself feel better about what was going on in your personal life by what you were spending your money on. And I did a lot to make amends within the people in my immediate circle that I did hurt in those situations. And I mean, this was years and years ago, so thankfully my life turned significantly around, and I have done everything that in my power, and in that case. And I understand that doing the things to make those amends is scary, and it's really bloody hard, because my God, it is. At the same time, I think doing it and acknowledging the hurt not only helps the people that you hurt, but I think that it heals you a little bit. And I think that that's part of the reason that I lost a lot of respect and faith in these individuals, is because there was no true acknowledgement, there was no true apology, there was no true trying to make amends. It was too bad, so sad, just kidding, it never happened. I'm blind with prescription glasses. Like, and I think that that's what makes it very upsetting at the end of the day, is that I think a lot of us in this situation would have a bit of an easier time moving on and accepting it for what it is, if we had at least an inkling of acknowledgement, at the very least, for what happened. None of us ever got that. And I get that closure is also a very individual circumstance. At the same time, though, you don't get to punch me in the face and tell me it didn't hurt. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I personally have a lot of frustration and upset and anger at the three of them for not only the hurt that they caused to a lot of people, but in my mind, the damage that not only they perpetuated, but that they inflicted. And I think a lot of us are going to take a long time to heal from that. This was the first group where I felt accepted and as an actual human being, after spending my entire youth riddled with bullies, and to have that destroyed once again after what I thought was a solid group, to find out that the water was getting really, really, really hot. It's stuff you don't really come back from, I don't think, unless it takes a lot of bloody time and a lot of bloody acknowledgement from the perpetrators. But I don't know if we're ever going to get that, and that's the most disappointing thing, is that they sicked people on other people. They stuck knives and they twisted them before they pulled them out and stuck you again. And we're trying to figure out our way through it, and there isn't even a I did it.
Yeah. I'm a big
When the
believer that
sad,
closure is a myth, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't think closure really
and
exists.
the closure that I would like is them in wonderful matching orange jumpsuits with doors closing behind them. But I know that that's not going to happen, because unfortunately there's not a lot of legal recourse for us.
No.
No.
And even if there were, there ain't a damn one of us that could afford it.
No.
There's
Well,
not.
we will actually have an episode about that next season, about what we tried to do legally, why that's not an
Hmm.
option, because that's a that's a complicated conversation, because I think that's also been a question people have had is why didn't more happen? And it's like, well, this was international. It crossed state
Hmm.
lines. And unfortunately, federal laws are only as good as who enforces them. And for example, I always give is the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, is a law, but there's actually no body that enforces it. It's not like the FBI enforces it. You have to actually
Yeah.
sue. And how many people with disabilities have the funds, means, or time, the knowledge to seek out how to sue for that? Not everybody has
Yeah.
advocates who can do that for you, or the means, if even if you do have an advocate. So even though there might be this federal law, not everything gets investigated because there just isn't someone to do that. And so
With
that's
so widespread, where the hell do we prosecute them?
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
Like,
part of
I
it.
know,
That's yeah.
I know where they live. I know their state. Like, is it there? Is it where I live? Is it Texas? Is it? I think the ship's to Australia. I think there are a couple people in a couple of
yep.
Aussies.
England,
And England,
Australia, there are a few in Canada,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll
obviously.
cheer you on from up north.
It went to multiple countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like, where do
there's
you prosecute that?
yeah. And I think that's why it's been so hard for people to move on, is because there will never be closure, either legally or them
Hmm.
admitting it, because I do not believe they're the type of people to go and finally get that help to make amends.
No.
I'm also have had family and loved ones who have addiction, and
Hmm.
only one has actually ever made amends to me out of quite a few people, and that was only because he did the work and took his time, and he's made a concerted effort to apologize for that. But that's one
Hmm.
out of like seven people who I knew. Well, now one person never actually hurt me with it. He was hurting himself, and that was a different situation. But like my own mom is an addict and has never taken accountability and continues to push it on everybody
Yeah.
else. And I'm just, again, I'm a firm believer in there's no the real closure is how you choose to move on with what happened to you,
Hmm.
and how you take it and translate it into your life. Do you heal from it and learn from it,
Yep.
or do you stay in it and stay depressed and, allow that trauma to control you? And I think that's the real closure. And that's part of why we wanted to do this podcast, is to allow people to talk about the healing, to talk about what happened, to get it off your chest, so that way one day we can move on from it and have learned something.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest lesson for me is, look how many people wanted to be a part of this podcast, who are listening, who are hearing, whether they were a part of it or not. And this is where I'm going to get emotional, but I've had so many people message and say, thank you for talking about this. Because even if they don't want to come on here and show their face or have their voice heard, they're still hearing the conversation and being able to process that in their own heads.
I was nervous coming on when I did the first one, but it was it felt good, and I cried in the last episode. I did, but it felt good coming in and talking about everything and saying, "This is what they did. This is what happened. It was something great that they ruined." So that's what I would say to people that are listening. It's good to come on here. It it's nice to like be able to hear other people, because we all know other people have the same experience, but it's nice hearing people admit it, because I didn't want to admit the shit that I like, the money I
Hmm.
spent, the things that I threw with them. I didn't want to admit that I'm out so much money, or that I did all this stuff, or that I was one of those idiots that put fucking TFP Army on my Instagram and did those hashtags. The one thing that I can say that I'm happy about, that I didn't attack people in the fucking group, because I I those are the people that I want to talk to be like, how do you feel about it now? That if you were one of the people that went after other people, how, what is it now? Like, do you see that you were so far in it that you were like, this person is the enemy. Because I 100% did that with that one girl, but my issue with her was posting other people's children. That I was like, you are clearly a bad person. You're taking other people's kids' photos to like negatively talk about other people.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's not, you weren't in the bubble. Like, I don't understand looking at people that were like in there, like Kara, and being like, fuck that person, she's evil. Like, I can't understand doing that because the group was the safe space. Like, I I, I do want to hear from those people. And
Mhm.
because like, why? What was it and what did you get out of it attacking the people that were in our safe space, that were part of it, and not doing bad things other than questioning the bad things that went on?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure there were more people like me that were just, I didn't question it until things got really bad because I was scared of being one of the people that were attacked.
Mhm.
And then I think when I realized that they were waning in their power structure, I'm like, this is a safe time to attack them because everyone is now on board that things are going bad. So
Mm-hmm.
Kara set the stage work for all of us seeing that they were bad people doing bad things. And I clearly piggybacked off of that to be like, hey, you guys suck and this is the bad stuff you're doing. But I didn't get attacked for it because at that point, I did, because I was scared, wait until it was starting to fall apart. And I was like, it's now safe to come out and be like, this is wrong. Where you were braver and you questioned it early on when you first got added. And that's way braver than I was. That I group and 100% fell for a lot of shit I shouldn't have because I was a
Well,
weaker
and
person.
no, I adore you, Katie, but I'm gonna stop you because that's fucking bullshit, my love. Um, it isn't like there is no weakness in what you did, and there is no strength in what I did. It is like, how do I word how do I word this? Um, I I know that I will never get apologies from the multiple people who attacked me. Because I wasn't attacked once, I wasn't attacked twice. I was attacked three, four, five different times in that group. I got it a lot. Like I said, I had messages and threats and people with my license and all that kind of stuff, or like my teaching license. And for me, it wasn't strength like questioning a group. It was, y'all need to wake up. It was, I have always been someone who I believe in defending people who cannot or will not defend themselves. And because I got added in the great cold medicine, cold medicine gate, is that what we decided to call it on this one? Um, Whatever, be it intentional or not. Um, I had the outside perspective of having been involved in the cult before and all of that. I had previous experience recognizing those red flags, Katie. You didn't. And that is not weakness on your part. You and a lot of us in the group, we believe in the good in people. We assume positive intentions. We assume light and love and life. We assume that people do good things and people want good things for this world. And that is why I think that moving forward, I use the word moving forward instead of moving on. I think that that is why moving forward is so difficult for a lot of people. For me, I've already moved forward. I will never move on from this. Anytime y'all want me to come back and talk about this, I will. I'm again, petty cunt. I'm never going to move on from this. I'm never going to not be willing to talk about what happened to me and what happened to other people because people like the triplets thrive in darkness and they thrive in silence.
Mhm.
And I do not think that you or anyone else who was in the group for so long is weak in any capacity. We were all taken advantage of. And that is not through any fault or weakness of ours. That is because of the conniving and manipulation of three particular people. You are not weak because you didn't speak out until the end. You protected yourself from perceived harm. And there's not a fucking thing wrong with protecting yourself, Katie. There's not. There's not a damn thing wrong with protecting yourself and protecting your peace and protecting your space. There's not. And I do not want you to view yourself as weak for doing that. And anyone who isn't on this podcast and isn't comfortable using your own voice to talk about these things because they can't for whatever reason, they are not weak. They are not soft. They're not any of that. They're protecting their peace in the way that they need to protect themselves. And there's not a damn thing wrong with it. I do not mind being the voice for people who can't or won't speak for themselves for whatever reason. That's why I became a teacher. That's why I am so politically active. That's why I do a lot of the things that I do in my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't do anything out of strength. I did things out of necessity. I could have shut up. I could have not said things. I put up with a lot in that group, a whole lot in all of those side groups and all of that bullshit. And I didn't stay because of the triplets. I stayed because of my friends. I stayed because of Ashley, who I've known outside of the group for years. I stayed for my former student who invited me. I stayed for the people who I personally knew in that group that I knew couldn't leave for themselves for whatever reason, and they needed someone safe in the group that they could talk to if they needed to, they could vent if they needed to, they could do whatever they needed to. That's why it wasn't because of the triplets, it was because of, like the title of this podcast says, it was the friends we made along the way. Whether we knew them before, whether we knew them during, whether like Persephone, I became a true friend. I like to think I'm a true friend of yours after the group. Like, I don't want to say that the trade-off was worth it because that implies that like what happened to us is okay in my mind. But good came out of the badness that we all endured. And the good had nothing to do with the triplets. The good had to do with us and what we made of our things, despite what the triplets did to us.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a really good way to start wrapping up our conversation today. I think this was I knew this one would be a little bit more on the emotional side. It would be a more powerful one, mostly because we are talking about something that is so sharp, so a topic that is so deep and hurtful. But I want to thank you both for coming on. In a second, I'll ask if there's any like last thing you'd like to say. But I think for anyone who's listening who this brought up a lot of emotion with, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you do some good self-care, for, at least part of today. And recognize that no matter what hand you had in it, whether you saw and didn't say anything, whether you participated, ultimately they were still the ringleaders. And yes, there's an accountability we all need to take for not doing more to fix it and stop it. But we were not the instigators of it. We did not create the environment to do that. And I want everyone to remember that because that's something I had to remember too in order to move forward. So unfortunately, we keep losing Jess for people who are listening who are not watching the video. Her internet has been going in and out. So I'm going to let Kara and Katie have some final words and hopefully she'll come back so we can wrap up the episode. I want to make sure she has a moment to say something. So who would ever like to go first?
I'm really glad I was on here. Kara, that was everything you said was wonderful. It made me feel so much better.
Good.
I think just because we talked about the House Cup, I can't even say the one good thing. The one thing that will always make me laugh about this horrible cult that we are all in is up your butt. Is always the one thing that I always laugh about, and it is something that I still like use as a funny thing of, oh my God, do you guys remember when William Shatner blocked a bunch of us because of hashtag up your butt? that is the one good thing that came out of what was such a fun thing with the house cup that then became terrible with the second one, is at least I can remember the one fun one before we really started to go downhill into all of the negative stuff. Was that is one thing that will always make me laugh, and I thought of it when we were talking today because the house cup came up.
Did you?
Mhm.
I don't think I ever mentioned I met him after that incident at a con. And I had to not say anything because I was working that con, so I could not be the person to get kicked out because I was acting as Stan Lee's bodyguard for that con, and William Shatner was there.
Oh,
And I had to not say a goddamn word because I
Hey,
really wanted to say, because he has a house in Kentucky, in Lexington, not far from me. He has horses and he competes in the same competition a friend of mine's mom does. So he is like around this area, and he was here for a con, and I was like, oh man, if I just walk up and say up your butt and walk off, I'm gonna be fired so fast. But it would be the most epic, like,
yeah.
peace
Do you
out.
remember when you got upset on Twitter?
Over the dumbest thing.
Yeah. Started
from
tagging J.K. Rowling. Like, he got so mad.
On her behalf too, and she's like,
so
well, now she's just a turf bitch, so
Yeah.
let's
Now
right.
she sucks. So we're
she
okay with
fucking
upsetting.
sucks. She can eat
Hashtag she who must not be named.
Yeah.
she can devour a satchel of Richards for all I care. So
Exactly. So for me, the thing that I will always remember from TFP is the bucket of KFC and the cat.
Yeah.
So if you weren't part of the group, there was this saga over a couple of days, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Where,
like 3 or 4 days. It was not a short thing.
yeah, yeah. One of the triplets, I don't remember which one anymore. Her cat got out and she was trying to lure her cat back into her car and was asking the group for like, how do I do? Like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And someone suggested that she get a bucket of KFC chicken and use it to like lure the cat into her car. And someone made fucking drumstick
T-shirt.
KFC earrings and t-shirts and sold them to the group. And oh God, every time I drive past a KFC, all I think of is that series of absurd posts and just the ridiculous suggestions. And I think she tried every single one.
Yeah, she would
Like
sit
just
in her
ridiculous.
car at night because she could see him. I
Yeah,
remember, and
yeah.
like was trying to get him to come to the
Mm-hmm.
car, and she even had a trap.
Mm-hmm.
And he would get in the car, then he'd get skittish, and he'd take off. Like,
Uh-huh. Like it's moments like that that make me look back on the shenanigans of the group with fondness. Was that.
mhm.
And I will never look at the House Cup with fondness because of what happened to me with it.
Sure.
But moments like that I find very entertaining. It was things like, seeing like, oh, it's my kid's birthday. Can we get a birthday post or
Yeah.
whatever? And like the weird videos people would post to wish a baby happy birthday, or like just like things like that, like the human moments of connection that we had in the group. And that is what I will always remember. But goddamn, the fucking KFC. And it's just that is the thing that always makes me giggle is the KFC. And
That's good.
low key, I kind of want the earrings, but I need a magnet backs because my ears aren't pierced. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
trying to remember if I had a favorite moment. Honestly, I'm having a hard time like thinking of one because I've blocked even the good
Hmm.
stuff out, really, which I think is sad for me, but
Yeah.
that's just usually how I work
Hmm.
is I have to like not remember even if
Dump and
it's
go.
good because it's just too it makes me too sad, like I get too nostalgic for it. But I
Hmm.
will say I think that first House Cup was such a different experience and it was so much fun. I think one of the ones I won is you had to stack a bunch of books like as tall as you could. And I had like my ex was like, "What in the hell are you doing?" And I'm like pulling all these
Yeah.
books off the shelf and I'm trying to stack them. And like I made like one of them is you have to make a castle out of books, and like you just the different things where
Mhm.
it was fun to be united with a bunch of people you didn't know doing the silliest crap. Some people are a little braver than others. Um,
Because
like
we
I
got to
won a couple
play.
of the makeup competitions. I remember that because I would whip the makeup out and like
Mm-hmm.
do something crazy with it, and that was a lot of fun. I can't remember which specific look like the first one I won, but I was like, oh, that's so awesome. And then I was like all into it because I'm a pretty competitive person to a ridiculous degree. So like once I win something, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm fucking sold. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So I think for me that just that feeling of being united in something
Mm-hmm.
was really, really nice. Fortunately we keep losing Jess. I'm sure she's trying to get back on. I hate this. We have, internet issues suck. Technology sucks. Um but I want to, again, say thank you for both of you for coming on talking about such a hard subject. This is our longest episode to date now. We are almost at an hour and a half. But I think it brings up a lot of different things, and it's a good way to kind of end this season before we get into our other topics next season. And as always, we encourage people to reach out if you have a story to share. And I have to apologize for those who have emailed and I've not returned it. I've been dealing with I work for Medicaid. So if you can imagine the paperwork
Yeah.
debacle that was the last couple of months with all the changes that were thrown
Yeah.
at us during holidays, that I worked all through Christmas, like literally worked all through Christmas. So if I've not responded to an email, that is why. I will hopefully being able to catch up here in the next couple of weeks as I start to filter through. But we appreciate all the comments, supportive, and we still welcome critiques and criticisms because we know not everybody had the same shared experience. So please
Mm-hmm.
note, even if I don't necessarily respond to it, it doesn't mean it was not heard. Um, and acknowledged in some way, shape, or form. So we look forward to seeing you all in season 2. And you both, I think, I know Kara signed up for another episode next season. I'm kind of looking. Yeah, so we'll see Kara again next season with a different subject. And, Katie, if we're coming up with a couple more episodes. We're even going to be inviting people who had businesses that sold through these groups that were not triplet related, how it affected their business after, because a lot of us were our main sources of income as well, that we had our little side businesses. So that's something we're going to be adding on to one of the seasons. So well, thank you both. I'm sure I speak for Jess, that we appreciate everyone. I'm sorry that her internet was decided to be a complete jackass today, but she will be back with season 2. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week whenever you're listening. And we'll talk to everybody soon. All right.